Today we are taking on DungeonnoobP, and once again we're using the old team I was using from the previous video. And although these Pokemon are not at all that great, I really enjoyed using them because in a lot of battles you really have to start actually tanking, and you can't really rely too much on your Pokemon to really muscle through, since none of these Pokemon are really that great except maybe Pidgeot in a sense, although it just doesn't work out well with the structure of this team. So really this is just not a good team, but that's what makes it enjoyable to use. So anyways, our opponent is actually using a pretty good setup here. He's got a Volcarona, and I don't know if it's a Mega Metacham or Mega Manectric, and then he has a Kyogre. And normally I don't like to face people with Ubers, and I actually tell people not to use Ubers but stick to OU. But in this situation, once again, I wasn't expecting him to have an Uber, and this was an in-game battle, so I wasn't able to tell him that, and I made the exception here, although I probably will stop doing that sooner or later in the future. So anyways, he starts off at Glasgow, or what appears to be Glasgow, so I go for the Sleep Powder in case it has Poison Heal, so we can stop that from, getting set up. And then here I think about switching it to Lapras, because we could get in and actually start dealing crazy damage, because this Lapras is of course a Specs Lapras, and it has access to a very powerful Freeze Dry, which will even hit water types that resist it, and it also has Hydro Pump, which will probably completely destroy anything that tries to switch in, unless they have like Water Absorb or something. So anyways, I decided actually instead it's probably better to just start sweeping, and I start setting up the Quiver Dances on this Glasgow, and luckily we actually get the full turns asleep, so he stays asleep once again, and that's of course great news. So I figured now it's enough time, and I may as well start attacking to see how much damage we can actually do to the Glasgow. And to my surprise, it's actually super effective, and then it's then that I realized that this is actually a Zoroark and not a Glasgow, and he goes for a knockoff, which does ridiculous damage to our Venomoth. I don't even know how. I don't know if this is like an attack trained Zoroark, but that was crazy high, or maybe Venomoth is just that frail. But anyways, now that we outspeed, I figured we may as well just finish off the Zoroark before he finishes off us. So I go for the Bug Buzz, which is of course enough to take him out. So that's that. So anyways, he goes into the next best option that can face Venomoth, and that is in fact his Volcarona, because it resists most common stabs that Venomoth would use, including Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, and Bug Buzz. So it's really one of the best checks you can have. And anyways, I think about switching out, but then I realized, well, I do outspeed him, and I do have Sleep Powder, so I may as well put that to my advantage. And normally I don't really like using sleep induced strategies, because they don't really feel too fun or fair in a sense, especially for the opponent, because it's not fun to fight somebody who only abuses sleep. Although in this case I do try and follow the sleep clause, and I do make that clear in my videos, so I can only have one Pokemon to sleep at a time, and if he switched out, then that would be fair game. But anyways, he decides to stay in, so that's that. So I go off for another Sleep Powder, which we do of course land. And once again, since we are +2, it's not terrible defensively for Venomoth, because we in most cases should be able to live the hit and then get off another Sleep Powder where we can start setting up and potentially attacking back. So he stays asleep there, which is great, and I go for another Quiver Dance, which so I can get myself more, I guess, more bulk in a sense, but also more attack against him. And he wakes up and goes for a Quiver Dance of his own, which is really not a bad move here, because that way you can hit his back offensively hard, but also he's boosting his defenses, which will help him out quite a bit. So I go for another Sleep Powder here to shut him down from continuing to set up himself. And now I want to test the waters and see just how much damage our Bug Buzz could actually do to the Volcarona. And unfortunately it's really not that much, and the Volcarona luckily does stay asleep, so I figured that we may as well go for another quick Quiver Dance to get ourselves, I guess, a bit higher in the boosting status. So that's that. And the Volcarona stays asleep once again. So now that we're like basically 3 ahead, I'm comfortable just attacking more, because you wouldn't think that the Volcarona would be able to knock us out at this range. And we do a lot more damage there, but unfortunately when he goes for the Heat Wave, it's enough to actually knock us out. And I guess that must have been a bad damage roll or something. I thought we would live that at +3, but unfortunately that was not the case. So my next best check here was Lapras, And in reality, there's not many Pokemon that can check a Volcarona if it's running a Z move, because really with Z power you can basically break through anything that doesn't 4 times resist you. So he goes for a Roost here, and I go for a Quick Surf. And really, if I went for a Hydro Pump, it probably would have been enough to take it out, but I wanted to go for something that was consistent, because Hydro Pump does of course have that chance at missing. So I go for another Surf, and I was waiting to see what he would do in case he decided to switch out or something else, but you know, he decides to stay in. But really, since I'm running choice specs, although it does give us that additional power output, it also forces us to stick with one move. So we were forced to go for Surf again, because if we had access to Hydro Pump, it probably would have been better in terms of consistency. But to my surprise, he actually is running a Z move, and it's not even just a regular Z move at that, it is his Bugnium Z, which means he gets access to Established Spin Out. And really, if he was using the Fire type Z move, it also would have worked out well, because Lapras is part Ice type, so it doesn't even resist fire. But his Savage Spin Out is enough to one-shot us, and you can't really be too surprised because he's at +1, and that's a neutral Z move, so of course it would be enough to take out Pokemon like Lapras, even with its 130 HP stats. So next up, I had to figure out who I wanted to send in, and Rapidash was really my best answer, because now I know his moveset is Crow Dance, Roost, Bug Buzz, and his Fire type move, because you know, that's of course knowing what he ran, and he revealed his moveset fairly early on. So anyways, or it wasn't, yeah, it was Heat Wave, but anyways, here I just go for a Wild Charge just to get the consistent damage, and in case he also switched out, you'd also get that, you know, output. And then he faints, which is great news for us. So he goes into his Glasgow next, and this is the real deal right here. It's not the Zoroark like last time, and it was kind of predictable that he was going to go for a ground type move, since, you know, Rapidash would take super effective damage. So I switched into Weezing because we have Levitate on this, and even if he goes for anything else, we are a physical tank, so we would be able to take most hits quite well. So here I go for the Will-O-Wisp in case he stays in, so that way we can shut down the Glasgow from really being effective. And luckily for us, this is not a Poison Heal Glasgow, it's just I guess it's just a standard Glasgow, which really helped us out, because Poison Heal would probably be able to destroy our team. But anyways, we are able to get the burn on the Manectric, but unfortunately for us, we don't really have any Pokemon that can actually, in a sense, resist Manectric, and that's once again the problem with having bad team structure. We just had a ground type here, you know, this wouldn't even be a problem, or even just anything with good special defense. So here I decided, you know, it's probably best to stay into Weezing, because nothing else would really take a move from Manectric that well. And you know, I could also keep Pokemon like Rapidash in for the game later on in case they ever become more useful. That's just kind of this anticipation of the future. So anyways, he goes for a T-Wave, which solidifies that this was a good choice staying in, because any of our other faster attackers being paralyzed would be completely shut down. So, you know, it is unfortunate for Weezing in their sense, because, you know, now it's going to be a lot more slower, but it's also not so bad. So he goes for a T-Ball, which does pretty good damage, and we go for a Sludge Bomb, which too does pretty good damage back to him, and he loses his Air Balloon, and, you know, now he's at pretty low HP from the burn. So here it just prompts me to switch out into Rapidash, because we should most likely take a T-Ball without getting one-shotted, unless it's like a critical hit and a choice specs, and we already know this is not, because he had an Air Balloon just earlier. So he goes for a T-Ball, which still does really good damage to Rapidash, and that's just the thing with it. It's just it's not really the best Pokemon, because it's so frail, and its attack stats, although they're pretty decent, it's just they're not that great. So, you know, it's not the best Pokemon to use in a sense. But anyways, I go for Flare Blitz here just to finish it off, and in case he switched out, you know, we wanted that additional power output, which we were able to get. Then he goes back into his Glasgow, and you know, the obvious play here is once again to go into Weezing, but, you know, I really figured that he couldn't do much against it, so I was just hoping that he would stay in and just attack, and he did. He went for a Rock Slide, which, you know, did absolutely no damage to Weezing at all. So here I decided to try and go for the Will-O-Wisp so we can shut it down, And one thing I was thinking was, well, now we know for sure that the Metacham is his Mega, so if he switched out and we got paralyzed on the turn that he switched in, that would be absolutely terrible. So I try and go for Will-O-Wisp, predicting the switch, and he does in fact switch into Metacham, but just then Weezing decides to sell and get paralyzed once again, which is absolutely bad news for us, because now he got his Metacham in, and he's going to be able to do crazy high damage to whatever we switch into. Although luckily for us, we do have Starmie and Rapidash, who hopefully would outspeed, because Metacham, although it hits like a truck, it doesn't have great speed, and that's what makes it so difficult to use, especially against the opponents. And we even have Pidgeot too that would be able to finish it off. But the problem is Gliscor, so we need to keep Weezing alive. I needed to figure out who was going to get sacked in light of Weezing's survival. So I figured out that Starmie would probably be the best play, because with his part psychic typing, we'd probably be able to take both of its stats pretty well. And unless he made a very good prediction, you know, we'd probably be able to resist whatever he had to throw at us. And even in most sets, unless you're running like Fake Out or something, a lot of sets are running Ice Punch or Bullet Punch, High Jump Kick, Zen Headbutt, and in some, you know, we'll be running T-Punch too. But you know, I didn't know what this was, but my stat would be completely resisted and shut down by Starmie actually. So that's something that I find interesting, because now I know that Starmie is actually a pretty good counter to Mega Metacham, although we can't hit him back that hard. So you know, I had to figure out what I wanted to do here, because we can hit with a Scald to try and get a burn chance, but you know, Metacham might also have better special defenses than physical defenses, and that wasn't something I was too sure about. So I was considering whether Psyshock or Scald would be the better answer here. But then when I did some research, I figured that Metacham actually has the same defensive stats. It's 85 at both, so I decided that Scald would probably be the better move, because we could get a burn. But fortunately we don't, and it actually does like very low damage to him, and he gets off his T-Punch, which does pretty good damage back to our Starmie. So I go into Rapidash, and I just pray that we can outspeed this guy, because if we don't, then it's over for us. And luckily for us, we do, and we were actually able to take him out. And that was a good contribution there by Rapidash. He was able to get rid of the Metacham and the Volcarona. And then, you know, he reveals his last Pokemon, which is of course his Kyogre. And this did get a bit scary, because if anybody's running a PvP Kyogre, then it's pretty much over for me, because if you're running Choice Scarf and you just have Water Spout and that Rain, you know, that's basically one-shotting or two-shotting any other Pokemon that tries to stand in his way. But luckily this is not really a PvP Kyogre, so we're able to outspeed and get off our Wild Charge, which does massive damage to him, you know. And now I just have to switch into Pidgeot and pray that it outspeeds the Kyogre. And this game runs on the Gen 6 mechanic, where on turn 1 you use your pre-Mega Evolution speed. So whatever Pidgeot had, it's like 70 or 80, we're going to be using that speed on turn 1. We'll only get our 120 base speed once we fully Mega Evolve. So I was a bit scared that we would not actually outspeed the Kyogre and knock it out here. But luckily for us, this was not, you know, a fully speed trained Kyogre. So we were able to outspeed and get off our Hurricane, which is enough to take out the Kyogre. And his last Pokemon that's left is his Gliscor. And lucky for us, it really can't do anything to Weezing. So I decided that, you know, once he went into his Gliscor, the best play would be to switch out into Weezing, because we can make use of Pain Split, and we can also burn it. So, you know, even if Weezing went out, we'd be able to get into Pidgeot and finish him off. And if he had him burned, that would be better, because then his Rock Slide would do less damage. And once again, we could also make use of Pain Split, because I went for a Hurricane. It's not likely to one-shot, it'd probably be a two-shot. And I wasn't sure if Pidgeot would be able to take our Rock Slide. So, you know, this right here was all I really needed to do to solidify that victory. And in reality, all I can actually do here is just stay in and just let the Gliscor slowly die, because we of course completely shut down the Gliscor since we're just that bulky. And I do get the Pain Split off, which, you know, puts us at pretty good HP. It doesn't help massively, but, you know, it's better than nothing. And then the Gliscor, you know, of course takes some damage from the burn. So now we're basically on a similar level of HP. So I figured it's just now time to start actually attacking, because Pain Split here could actually be a disadvantage to us, since we are probably going to be at the same, if not higher amounts of HP. So unfortunately we do get flinched there by the Rock Slide, but that's totally fine, because, you know, we can afford to take hits, because we're regenerating just as much HP as he's dealing. in most cases, until he went for that critical acrobatics, but that's just an exception and that doesn't happen all the time. So anyways, now this is his final turn of battle. He already knows it's over for him. So I will say though, good game. It was a well fought battle because I was a bit scared there, especially with his Volcarona and his Metacham, because if we didn't outspeed and remove of them, then they probably could have swept through our team, if not actually won the battle. So once again though, with a team like this where they're not really that good, you really have to make decisive choices, which makes it a lot of fun. But yeah, that is GG. Good game.